verbally, maybe.
All right. Well, we don't have anything else on our agenda until 10 a.m. So we're going to take a break for about 20 minutes. We'll come back right at 10 a.m. and start with that calendar.
it's going.
All right. Welcome back. We'll be back in session for the 10 o'clock agenda. We're going to switch things around just a little bit. We're going to move agenda item number 5 up to agenda item number 1, which is discussion and possible approval for the use of the Iron County Fair Building as emergency reunification center for the campus of Parowan Elementary and Parowan High School. Invite Tony Robinson and Officer Jed Townsend to the pulpit, please.
Hey, thanks for moving us.
What do you want?
One. Thank you. What questions do you have, or do you want to hear a proposal first?
Let's hear the proposal, and then we'll follow up. As I said, I have a long list of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Good. We're
Let's do
ready.
it.
We're ready.
So, as part of a emergency preparedness for our school district, our entire Iron County School District is assigned to put together a plan that we all follow, the entire school district follows, for any type of emergencies, whether it be a lockdown, a fire, you name it, all natural disasters. And if in the event that we are to evacuate our school, we have to go to a reunification location. And where our campus, both the elementary and the high school campuses are so close in proximity, we kind of treat it all together. So that's a pretty large population of young ones that will need to be relocated with their families in a reunification area. The only places in town would be the church, the LDS churches here in town, as well as the only other building that we can think of in town that would be able to facilitate that kind of reunification would be the Iron County Fairgrounds building. So we were asking permission and jump through whatever hoop necessary to see if that could be an option for a reunification location. How'd I do?
You did really well.
Pretty good?
Mm-hmm.
Great. I guess my only question, I do actually have a question. Well, I have a couple of questions. So just knowing that in the event of, especially like a natural disaster type of a thing, George with emergency management, that may also be a place that's utilized for staging for emergency management type operations. I can't imagine that would be an issue that, we couldn't work around. If it happens, I feel like that's probably a pretty good location. I think, maybe the churches in town are maybe a little bit too close to the high school in the event that there's something going on there that, we wouldn't want to plug up those transportation arteries with a lot of people coming to the churches if there's an emergency situation going on at the school. I'm talking out loud. I'm thinking out loud.
You are. And those are all good things that have been discussed. One thing that we, Mrs. Robinson and I both agree on is if there were to be an evacuation of any kind, whether it be bad weather or if it's the worst case scenario, say an active shooter, we want to be indoors somewhere. And those are the two most realistic buildings to be able to house that big of a group of students and then try and coordinate the reunification, because every parent's going to come to get accountability for their child.
So to speak to Mr. Blake's point, for reunification, you don't anticipate that taking days.
Nope.
Like hours and minutes.
It will
right?
take probably a long day,
yeah,
but not days.
So in the event that you would have a situation where George might need to stage something, I think they would be done, because theirs is going to be more acute.
Because reunification's a short term. It's not an extended operation.
However long we can get the parents and their student reunited.
Literally, we're just trying to put parents back with kids.
And really
on their way.
And the proposal that we're bringing for you today is essentially a contingency plan for what we already have set in place. So we just want to have multiple options, because this is also sensitive information to know where we're going to be relocating. So we want to be able to just, the powers that be, the the critical incident command team to make their decisions, and they'll determine whether the best option is to be at the churches or if,
Available or not.
or if it's there, and that's just another option that we're looking for the best approach for this process.
And I wonder too, Commissioner, often George's staging doesn't need to be inside.
Right. No, that's, yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking back to the times that we've utilized that building. During the Bryan Head fire, that's where the Unified Command, but they didn't.
They were able to sleep in there.
But
They,
that turned into a dormitory, and that's where we had briefings and things like that. But that's not. I mean, that's really not.
Our goal is to get the students out.
Right.
As possible.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's our goal.
So it doesn't seem like there's a ton.
No, I don't. I guess my other question: any idea how you're going to get the students from the school area over there? That's deal with it.
Our first is our feet.
The Lamberfettes?
Possible.
Really, yep. If we're in the worst case scenario, again, if we go back to an active shooter incident, then it would be probably on foot because we also adhere to run, hide, fight.
Yeah.
And so if the teachers can get their students out, then they're going to be on foot to make that trip either way.
High stepping over here.
That's
Yeah.
it.
And
Yep.
then if we have to do transportation from one of the locations, then that's where the buses.
That's
come in.
all. That'll be all part of that plan as
I
well.
have a question about logistics. Is there a need or an opportunity to provide an electronic key to get in the building?
That's
That's what we're hoping.
that's
for,
yeah,
so
that's
we
the
have
driving force is
access.
why we're on the agenda today, is to get access for that. And just know that this won't be used or passed out. This will be in locked away boxes for emergency, like boxes that we have.
I know
Only
that.
admin will have access to that. So maybe training one time for probably us just to get a look see of what it'll look like. But then after that, that'll be all locked away. So I feel very confident that no one will have just open access from the schools going into the building.
Yeah. I mean.
I know that we also have to go through a protocol to say, yeah, we hereby give you access.
Oh, and that's and just so, like, for instance, like the hospital, all of the law enforcement officers in the county have 100% master key access to the hospital with their electronic locks.
And the school district
And
is the same way.
the school district's the same. This isn't anything new, and we've never had incidents of people misusing those tools or that authority, to my knowledge. But
I do know that Jared's in Disneyland today.
Good for him. I wish I was too.
We
wish
want to be too.
no, Commissioner Cousins, do you have any thoughts or?
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and we'll just, yeah. I'll be your point of contact. We can
out well.
coordinate those. I mean, keys, and then just coordinating with the fair personnel with Jamie, and yeah, it's Parowan. Y'all know each other and have each
True.
other on speed
True.
dial.
That's it.
This will be an easy thing,
Cool.
I think.
Thank you very much.
To have a motion.
Let me find 5. I'll move to approve the use of the Iron County Fair Building as an emergency reunification center for the campus of Parowan Elementary and Parowan High School.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Done.
Thank you for your time.
You guys
Thank
get
you.
plenty of time to get to class.
Yes,
Back to
thank you.
class. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go back to agenda item number 1. It's the public hearing, discussion, and possible approval of a proposed zone change from residential half acre, R1 half, to residential 4,000 square feet, or the R4K, for approximately 16.53 acres within the legal description as outlined in the agenda, located near 3200 North, 2300 West in Cedar City. Reed Erickson.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
This is a rezone request for a property, as mentioned, 16 acres, that was rezoned recently as part of a larger property. This is located, let me go back here. you can see where the star is, and there's 2 properties above it and 1 below it that were 120 acre part of the Clemont Adams farm. The bottom 40 acres was annexed into Cedar City and has been zoned for what they call R22, which is 8 units per acre, 2 units per lot. And so they're looking at trying to create this parcel, which is in the unincorporated area, and cannot be annexed because it doesn't extend. The annexation declaration area for Cedar City ends at the north boundary of what they annexed and the south boundary of this property. The same developer owns in the city 40-acre piece, and then this 80 acres that's above it, which are 3 parcels. And so their interest is to create the R4K zone development, which is a new zoning category for the county. We've had one other project that has taken advantage of this R4K, which allows for a higher density when there's availability of water, central sewer, good transportation corridors. Everything makes sense to have higher density. Then they qualify to rezone to this R4K, and that's the property that we're talking about. Currently, it's R1/2, and the rest of that property was all zoned R1/2 from R5 here about 6 months ago or a year ago. I don't remember exactly how long it's been, but you can see that it has R5 on 2 sides, and then above it is R1/2. And then this is the Cedar City's general plan map showing what the density in the plan for the immediate area and where they don't have plans to annex this. This would be a development that would occur in the county without the option of annexing in order to get that kind of density. And this is their zoning map that is currently zoned. You can see that that parcel south of this is zoned R22, which is the closest really thing that we have. If you look at the R4K at 4,000 square foot lots, it's a little more than 10 units per acre, but that's hard to do with streets and everything. It's going to come out more like 8 units per acre at their higher density. And this is also an opportunity, as I've put up here, what the R4K zone does and what it allows for. It allows for and what the qualifications are, what the regulations are in the R4K zone. And so this would allow for townhome lots. We don't allow for duplexes. Townhomes are minimum 4 unit per building, or up to 8. Small lots for single family residential or townhomes. So the options that are in that zone. So that's what they would be able to do in that zone. And it would create a good transition from the city parcel up through this. We've talked with the developers about how that transition could occur as a single development and where the roads would stop city maintenance and start county maintenance, and how snowplows would work and everything like that as a single development. But we were confident that that can be worked out through the subdivision process. The developer is interested in exploring a development agreement as they submit a proposal for subdivision, so that they can kind of transition that from the city and still keep some of the lower densities, larger lots up against the already county developed larger lots, and try to make it fit better in the neighborhood there, as well as with the lots that are down on the south side on 3000 in Flying L that have larger lots, to try to work with those neighbors. And so the discussions that we've had with the developer at this point for the type of development that they're trying to do and work it with the neighbors and have it fit in and still provide higher density, I think they're being responsible in trying to address those concerns. The zone change, of course, doesn't go into all of that. We're simply saying, does it make sense in this area to have this kind of density? And then we can work through the specifics of the development agreement and the subdivision as that subdivision is proposed. So this is just, again, some review of the criteria for townhomes in the R1/2 and the R4K zone, and what the setbacks can be and what their densities can be and how it works. And the developers have been got copies of this. They've been reviewing it and are confident that they can make that work. So really, all the services are there. It's adjacent to a similar zone in the city. It can accommodate by services what's available there, and so the Planning Commission recommended that the zone be the property be rezoned to R4K. We need a public hearing, and then we can go into further discussion.
Okay. Chair will declare the public hearing on agenda item number 1 open for any questions or comments.
Tyler Melling on behalf of DDJ Development. Appreciate Mr. Erickson for going through some of what we're trying to do. The zoning in the city, we actually just recently completed the process of a development agreement with the city as well, so that closer to the neighbors and to the roads, it'll be single-family detached rather than twin homes, and then we can make up for those lost units on the interior of the development for doing townhomes instead of twin homes for those. Still the same density. So within the city portion, we're looking at 8 units per acre. However, in the county portion, even if this zone change is approved for R4K, the overall county density will still be about 3.5 units per acre on average, which with a performance subdivision, you can go up to 6. And that's if you're doing all the, jumping through all the hoops, providing the public amenities, taking care of the drainage, putting in the aesthetic things, and we're going to be quite a bit shy of that even with this zone change. The goal is to cluster the smaller units closer to the city portion, and then as we go closer to the north near Monarch Meadows, get to larger 1 acre lots, which would match the 1 acre lots we're doing across 2300 West in the Estates at Sunrise Ranch subdivision across the street.
Great. Thank you for the clarification. That helps. Any other comments or questions?
I have a question, but it's mostly for Richard. You were so comfortable.
I was asleep.
No, this is kind of a bigger picture question. So I was driving, my wife and I went for a ride, and we were at the intersection of Lund Highway and 1600 North, and where all that development has taken place. And have we given thought to, or I'm assuming there is some kind of a plan somewhere that if you're going to put that high density housing, that is anything going to be walkable? I mean, you're going to have these islands out in the middle of the valley.
So you're in the city at that location.
That's fair.
And that's a city location. But we have discussed with the city their drainage, which just by the natural flow of things is going north.
Yeah.
And so each developer, as they came into the county, that next one to the north, beyond that corner, there's another one to the north. They have a big detention pond, but before they can go any further, they have to have an agreement to dewater that detention pond into the Jones irrigation ditch. So they have to work with the, at least from that portion, they have to work with that.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious. I'd had that thought, and then this is a fairly intense development, and there's no stores by them. There's not much walkable. I'm just curious if that we'd tried to give that much thought, because otherwise everybody has to have a car.
yes, and that becomes the complication with Iron County as a whole, is that as it progresses to the west and the north, there aren't very many service providers in the sense of stores and gas stations and stuff like that. But we see some of that coming in. There's actually, I don't know if you've been out on Iron Springs lately, there is a service station coming out there to that corner.
Saw the sign.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Tyler's got an answer.
Come back. Come on down, Tyler.
If I may address that item, there are a couple things there. So one of the reasons we will be back for a development agreement is to discuss the placement of trails and things like that. The county has incentives to make sure trails and recreational amenities are publicly accessible but privately owned and maintained, whereas the city does not. It's just they don't care whether it's public or private. Well, it's going to be the same HOA, the same entity. So we want to iron out some of those details. There will be quite a trail system that we want to make accessible to the public throughout the entire development, as far as just internal recreation and flow, as well as internal traffic flow within the development without having to get onto the main roads. But the other part is kind of this chicken and egg situation, right?
Build it, they will come, right.
If the commercial developments, even a service station, they want a certain number of heads within a mile and 2 miles and 3 miles, and so those do come over time as you do that, or you can develop all of the county into 5-acre lots and just have major gridlock because no one's going to want a service station anywhere.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Any other question or comment? All right, seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Ask for motion.
I'll move.
Well, not Reed will follow up,
Follow up.
and then we'll motion.
We, of course, review all of the criteria, the considerations for zone change. You're aware that a zone change is a legislative decision, and the criteria for zone change is that it could promote the general welfare. You believe that it's better overall than detrimental, and so it gives the opportunity then for consideration of the administrative ordinances that we have as subdivisions and development of properties, and we can consider any further things like that in a development agreement as well. So I think unless you have questions, we're ready for our action.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the proposed zone change from residential 1/2 acre R1/2 to residential 4,000 square feet R4K for approximately 16.53 acres within the description in the agenda, located near 3200 North and 2300 West, Cedar City, Utah.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is approved.
Thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item number 2, public hearing, discussion, and possible approval of a proposed zone change from industrial I to agriculture 20 acre A20 for approximately 155.57 acres within the legal description provided within the agenda, located near 530 North Buffalo Rome Road, South Desert Mound Road at approximately 10300 West, Cedar City, Utah. Reed Erickson.
This property is located just as mentioned in the address, just on the south side of Desert Mound Road. You can see where the star is located between Desert Mound and Highway 56, just west of town. This is a land ownership map showing the property located, the 2 80-acre parcels there approximately. And you can see the railroad crossing right through the northwest corner of this property that comes from the Comstock mine area through this property at the corner and going north and hit the tracks on the Iron Springs Road. So this has BLM property on the east and south sides of this, with other private property on the north and the west sides. The property is zoned currently industrial, and you can see by the zoning map here that it has industrial all around it. The entire thing is surrounded by industrial property, and it is in an industrial area. And some of the concerns that staff had and that we've discussed at the Planning Commission level was putting residential out in an industrial area and what impact that would have both to the residential and to the industrial. You'll recall some discussions that we had last year about the industrial protection area that was proposed by the mine, and they ended up adopting this version of the industrial protection area for that area. In the upper right is the overall area, and then the big map on the left just is concentrated on the bottom part, and then the top part on the right bottom. And so you can see it fits right in between the two industrial protection areas. And so the staff recognizes the interest of the property owner, and having 160 acres out there that appears to be in the middle of nowhere, and it doesn't seem to really have an impact on anything. We would just raise the concern of, the impact that we know we have with residential and industrial around the mining operation, and where this property has had historical use of mining, and we don't know what the future is going to be for continued mining. There are mining tailing piles and mines and everything all on that's throughout that whole area, and it just raises the concern or question of what is the future there. We're not looking at 5 and 10 years, 20 years down the road. We're looking at 50 years down the road. We've had zoning in place since 1980. And the purpose of zoning, of course, is to try to identify an area for future land use that can be consistent and that people can rely on and depend on what can be there in the future in terms of investments and putting an interest in an area that they know can sustain that kind of use and development over time without encroachment of conflicts. Residential can be a conflict in industrial areas, and industrial can be a conflict in residential areas, just like we know it is with agricultural. Agricultural is a conflict with residential, and we have that continual conflict. And zoning, of course, tries to manage that. It tries to balance that. And so that's why decisions like this are legislative. They're trying to determine what is in the best interest of the future in not just a particular property, but for an area, for a geographic area, and the potential for what prospective uses there would be in the future. And then what uses that we allow and what conflicts those would have with potential uses in the future. So with blasting and railroad and a number of things going on out in that area, it's not ideal for residential development, if that's the intent for the future there. So those are some of the concerns that were brought up, and we discussed the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this zone change, with recognizing that those are inherent concerns, but felt like the size and the nature of the location of this property in relation to BLM and the uses there would probably be okay, not knowing what the future really holds and how much there is there. Part of our concern as staff is, once you do that, it's the proverbial open up the door and the gates come, and the next property owner wants to zone residential and have a residential, and we have more and more of those uses encroaching on commercial and on industrial. So it's all of those things taking into consideration and weighing out, the personal property rights and the opportunity that the property owner has to do that, what he can with his property, knowing that the property is zoned residential or zoned industrial, and they've started construction of a residential building there, and so currently are in violation with the fact that they are building residential without a building permit in an industrial zone. So this is an attempt to try to bring them into conformance by rezoning the property so that they can then be eligible for a building permit for a residence, because A20 would allow for a residence in the agricultural zone. So that's part of what is motivating this request.
So my concern would be if they did a minor subdivision at A20.
They're not dividing the property.
I was going to say though, but if the commissioners approved the A20 and they approached about a minor subdivision, theoretically you could have as many as 8 lots on 100.
It wouldn't have to be a minor subdivision. You could do any subdivision.
Yeah, but what I was thinking was, to your point, what is the maximum density going to be in the future?
Yeah, 20 acres per lot.
Yeah.
That's the potential. And of course, we try to look at both sides, potential as industrial, potential as agricultural 20. And, we also know that it might be fine for this property owner. He has no intention to do that. All property changes ownership, all property. Nothing lasts forever, and it doesn't always stay the same. So those are challenges that we face in trying to make decisions like this. This is showing the current aerial of the property, showing where the railroad goes through the property, the road coming off of the north end, going down into where the residence is currently being constructed, and the activities that are occurring there, kind of up against the hill and the trees there, fairly much protected up against that side. And then just zooming in a little closer to show the development that's been occurring there. So, of course, there are no other utilities out there. This is on a well, septic. There are no other services in the area. And so it is fairly remote. And is in the Tier 4 area, zoned commercial, with industrial protection areas on both sides of the property. And so we need a public hearing. I don't know if there are additional questions before we go to public hearing, but otherwise we can take comment and we can discuss.
I was at the planning commission and heard this in depth. So.
All right, Chair will declare the public hearing open on agenda item number 2. If there are any comments from the public. I do see one.
Sorry to interject. Just David Johnson, Economic Development. From a staff perspective in economic development, I would just say I've worked in communities like this. I'm not going to say for or against this, but just cautioning that there are unintended consequences when you are taking commercial or industrial development. And that's actually a concern many industries bring up, especially something along rail. Are there residents around? How close are they? And I have worked in communities where residential built in industrial areas, and then when the industrial came, that caused concern. So I don't know that I'm really adding much more value, but from an economic development perspective, it does create issues. I don't want to prevent anyone from building a home, but yeah, there's some of those unintended consequences. So
Thank you.
The home is built, right? The home is already built. It's under construction or is it built? Okay.
It's under construction, but it does not have a building permit, not authorized in that zone.
Seeing no other comments or questions, I'll declare the public hearing closed.
Of course, the criteria, the evaluation considerations that we look at in terms of whether those uses can occur in that zone. It is, large area agricultural continues even in the industrial zone. And so we have a lot of the uses that would occur in the agricultural 20 zone that can still occur in the, in terms of agriculture and grazing and any of those uses. Infrastructure-wise, there's really not infrastructure out there for development of any kind of density per se, but since it's in Tier 4, there's not expected to be infrastructure there for that type of development. So those are the considerations that we always look at when we look at rezones, and I think unless you have any questions.
Okay.
Discussion.
No, I'd consider a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed zone change from industrial 1 to, is that I or 1?
Industrial I.
I to industrial, or to agriculture 20 acre, A20 for approximately 155.57 acres within the section noted in the agenda. This is located near 530 North Buffalo Rome Road, south of Desert Mound Road, approximately 10300 West, Cedar City, Utah.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That change is approved. Moving on to agenda item number 3, public hearing and discussion on a proposed general plan tier change.
Mr. Chair, can I say something?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Just a thought. We've had others in the county at times build residents without a building permit, and we've been, criticized when we have, enforced that. And I just want to remind the public that that is not our law. That we are a subdivision of the state of Utah, and the state of Utah requires Cedar City, Iron County, these municipalities and counties to enforce the Uniform Building Code, and we can't do that without a building department and without issuing building permits. And so that's the law. That's the way it is in Iron County, and And like I've told others in the county that wanted to build without a building permit, I don't like heavy-handed government as much as the next guy, but that's the law, and that's what we have. And until people want to do something different, they need to change. If they want to work to change the county ordinances really this isn't on the county level, this is on the state level. If you want to go to your state representatives and make a change there, then we can discuss it on the county level. Would that be accurate, Reed?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. Now we'll move on to agenda item number 3, public hearing and discussion on a proposed general plan tier change, Tier 2 to Tier 4, and zoning map amendment R1, R2, and A20 to R5, and RA20 and A20 for properties currently in the Canaryville Tier 2 urban expansion area. No action is proposed. This is just a public hearing and discussion.
Correct. Thank you. And let me give you just a little bit of background. I've got a slide up here that just talked a little bit about some of the historical issues related to this, and the reason that there's not an action proposed for this is because we just want to give this adequate airing and make sure that everybody understands what we're doing and give opportunity for comment at 2 levels for the Planning Commission and the County Commission over a 2-month period. We've advertised for the zone change and the tier change. We've put up signs around the areas down in Canaryville. And this has been a long-term discussion, and so we're not interested in rushing into anything here. We want to make sure everybody understands what's happening. And this is just an opportunity for comment. We'll have this back on the agenda again for the Planning Commission in the November Planning Commission meeting, and then the first meeting here afterwards in November for the County Commission to take action. So we really have 2 actions that we're considering. One would be the tier change action, and the other would be the zone change. And when we come back next time, there'll be 2 separate agenda items. Today it was just one because it's one project that we're talking about, and we'll just have one public hearing related to both the zone change and the tier changes. But because we'd have no action, it just seemed simpler to do that. This is an initiative that we've been looking at for many years in the Planning Department and the Building and Zoning in trying to update and do good planning in relation to some of the historical land uses. When zoning was put into place, as mentioned with the previous agenda item in 1980, they went around each municipality and they just took a block of property and zoned it residential, whether it was half acre or 1 acre or something like that, without ever knowing what really was going to happen. And then in 1995, when the county adopted the general plan, it included the tiering system. And the tiering system was identified to have Tier 1 be the municipalities themselves. Tier 2 would be their growth areas, or their what they called the annexation policy plans at the time, that the legislature required each municipality to plan ahead and say, where are we going to grow? Where can we provide infrastructure? Where do we anticipate having higher densities? Where are we going to provide services? How's our transportation infrastructure going to look, et cetera, to plan for growth in Iron County? And at that time, the policy for growth meant that no growth would really occur outside of that Tier 2 growth area for the municipality. We wanted all urban densities or levels of any kinds of residential density to occur within a Tier 1 or Tier 2. Tier 4 is all of the rest of the county with the exception of a few Tier 3s. Tier 3s or existing communities at the time in 1995, we had Summit and Newcastle, which were not incorporated but were communities with common water systems, better street infrastructure. You know, they had a post office. They were a community. They just weren't incorporated. And so in 2005, we had a major general plan amendment where we created the provision for new communities in Tier 3 if they could provide their own infrastructure and urban density level of infrastructure requirements, common public water systems, sewer systems, road infrastructure, all of those kinds of things that were necessary to have a community, a new community. And so that's what Tier 3 became, and we've had 3 different Tier 3 projects approved since that time. One of them just recently annexed into Bryan Head Town for the majority of what was the Tier 3. So since all that time, we've been saying, we really need to do some county-initiated zone changes in this Tier 2 area, because it creates a lot of confusion where we have properties that are zoned R1 or R1/2, and then people can't subdivide into that because they're in Tier 2, but there are also other requirements that came into place, like our septic tank density studies that require a minimum of 5 acres. So they can't have R1 when they're limited to 5 acres, and then now 10 acres in Canaryville and Summit and Newcastle based on the recent septic tank density studies that we've done. So we've had a lot of land use tools that have come into place to help implement the policies that were adopted through the tiering system, but we've never gone back and fixed the zoning that was not commensurate with those policy interests. And so that's what we're doing now. As the bottom line says, it's time to do good planning. We've done good planning by creating these tools, but now we need to fix the zoning. So there was a third item that's part of this step of development tools that have less to do with us than it does with the town, but we're coordinating with them on that. And that's when you look at the town boundary closely. Let me go to a slide here that kind of shows that more easily. I don't know that I included the right slide for that. Well, yeah, I've got some down here further. For instance, if you look at Canaryville town and you can see the yellow line that goes around that, that yellow line, as opposed to the shaded area inside, the inside boundary is the town boundary. That's where they annexed right through the middle of a property, and they left the property split. And so you can see that all of these little jogs around there are, including or excluding a portion of that property. Just like when we did zoning, we just went along the section lines, and cut properties in the middle. And so our encouragement to Canaryville town is to fix that. They've got some properties that the majority of the property is in the town, and the house has a water connection. They got some that are out of the town, but the house has a water connection, and portions that are in and out. And so part of this kind of cleanup process with the tiering and the zoning was an encouragement for Canaryville, and that we would work with them in identifying which properties would make sense for them to annex the entirety of the property and do some cleanup. And so, for instance, this is just a zoomed in map showing, the areas in red are currently in the town, but really the majority of the property that they're attached to is out of the town. So those should be disincorporated, should not be part of the town. Whereas the areas in the teal color are small portions of a property where the majority is in the town and should be annexed. And so the town's working on amending their annexation policy plan so that they can include these properties, so that they could be annexed for the ones that are in the unincorporated area that aren't in their current annexation policy plan. So, and we've gone around the town and on all sides and just identified where all those properties are, which ones could come in, which ones could go out, to just help clean that up and make it a little easier for property owners to recognize what they wanted to do. So let me just kind of go back here to the statement right here on zone changes and legislative land uses and how they work. I think is just something that we keep in mind when we look at the considerations and the criteria of what's available and what isn't in terms of services. Just want to always remind us of that. This is currently what the Tier 2 boundary looks like for Canaryville that was established in 1995. You can see it follows on the north side the Bumblebee Springs Road, goes down I-15 on the west side and then to the county line, and then follows up on the east side of the land ownership. So you've got Sitla, Parks, National Park lands, BLM, and Sitla that define that boundary on the east side. So our proposal, well, let me go back just a little bit about the septic tank density study and what it revealed. These were just the study results that showed the density, and in summary, without a long explanation, in the yellow there you can see that what's recommended is 425 septic systems in that study area based on a density of 12 acres per septic, and given the fact that each that groundwater contamination acceptability would go to 3.5 milligrams per liter. And we had a lot of discussion about that at the time we adopted this. I'm not going to go into all that now. But we also pointed out that there are 498 lots. There are 498 lots that can utilize 425 septic systems before we would reach that unacceptable contamination level. So that means that we have to recognize that not everybody can divide their lot into 1 acre. Not anybody can divide their lot, because we already have more lots than we have available septics. The only answer there, long term, is sewer, common sewer and central sewer. And part of the recommendations that came out of that study was that we create a sewer district, and we work on getting central sewer into some of these areas of concern, and we have them, with Paraguna and Canaryville and Summit and Newcastle and other unincorporated areas where, if many of you are around in 1995 to 2000 when the Conservancy District was created, the Water Conservancy District, saying, look, we need to look at our groundwater and developing water systems for the unincorporated areas and help serve and manage the groundwater for our whole valley. And that's who initiated the original septic tank density study, was to protect groundwater. And that's where we came up with a 5-acre minimum in Cedar Valley, and then we extrapolated that, just throughout the county until we could do more specific septic tank density studies in some of these other areas. So there's a lot of other information that I won't get into, but just touched on to explain why we're doing what we're doing and trying to bring that all into balance and to try to have appropriate tiers and recognize where future growth can and should occur. Map on the left, current tier boundary. Map on the right, showing where the proposed tier boundary change would occur. So we recognize we have Check-Shawnee Cliffs down there that could be in a tier 2, and then just the areas that are around the Canaryville area that would shrink the tier 2 boundary. And what that means is that it reduces the option for somebody in that tier 2 to subdivide their property down less than the 20 acres that it will be in tier 4, which they haven't been able to do anyway because of the septic issues and water requirements. So this is how the zoning would look under the proposed rezoning structure, is that the pink would match what we have to the west and to the south with the RA20 zone, which is still 20-acre lot sizes, but more focus on residential with less conflict of the heavier agricultural uses. And then the gold in the middle is a 5-acre zoning that would recognizing still that you can't have a 5-acre subdivided lot. Can't create a new 5-acre lot because of the 10-acre minimum for septic, but it fits better with setbacks and uses and the possibilities there for the future that are commensurate with Tier 2. And we're working with Southwest Public Health, and as we look at septic systems, and there are technologies available, in the Ash Creek Sewer District to the south of us, for example, utilizes this policy that says if you put in a septic treatment system for an individual treatment that reduces the nitrates by half, you can reduce your acreage by half. And so it's feasible that people could do 5-acre lots. We don't want to prohibit that if they can do a septic system such that it would treat the nitrates to be commensurate with a 10-acre density with a traditional septic. And so that's why.
So this can be adjusted based on that.
Yeah, based on their technology use and
just like the development that we approved down south from here.
Yeah,
same principle. They've got their own treatment
they've got
plant.
central sewer down there, and therefore they can have smaller lots. And so as central sewer becomes available here, we'll relook at all this, as we ought to when new technologies become available, just like we are now with relooking at it, because we recognize the impact that septics have on our groundwater. And we can't have that kind of density of 1-acre lots anymore because of that. So that can change, and we can go back to 1/4-acre or 1/2-acre lots if we get onto central sewer, because that's what's dictating that. So that's what we're looking at here. So here's the old R1, as you can see that it just followed the section lines, and it didn't even split properties. We would follow property lines and do the R5 and the gold and the RA20 in the pink. And then down on the Chickasha Cliffs area, we would leave the Chickasha Cliff subdivision as R1 and rezone the portion down in the bottom left to R5 rather than R1 for that undeveloped portion. The old and the new. So again, these were just considerations for the town to consider amending their annexation boundary and annexing and stuff, which really doesn't relate to us as much, but wanted to recognize that as part of this whole process of trying to do good things for the properties and the owners and where they fit and what they can do and to get water if they're in the town and those kind of things. So again, we'll have a public hearing, but that's for the tier change. So just more specifics on the zoning here, and went through the zoning again, just to explain that we'll have 2 public hearings next time, one for the tier change, take action on that, one for the zoning. So unless you have specific questions, I think it's appropriate to have a public hearing, and then we can continue discussion.
I have a question regarding elections, voting. Is anything you're doing going to affect the annexation declaration boundary for the town?
Of what we do?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
We don't have anything to do with that. The town determines their own annexation expansion boundary. We are working with them and encouraging them to modify it so that they can clean up these split properties all around their boundary. But our tier change or zone change won't have any effect on that.
Okay. And then there had been drama in the past, and I really appreciate cleaning this up from my time in the recorder's office and certainly my time in this job, and that is lining up the annexation boundaries with the actual property boundaries. Do you know of any homes that were split that are going to be, are you, there's a question as far as valuation, there's a question as far as tax distribution, and certainly there's a question as far as, who gets a ballot in a municipal election. Do you know of any homes that are split that will be fixed by this, or do you know if any homes that are somewhat divided by this that will be?
The homes themselves aren't divided. It's just their lot.
We literally had one go through someone's living room one time, and it was like, oh my goodness, Solomon and the baby.
Not aware of any that in this case that where that exists. These are all just the portions of their lots, their properties.
And so the tier change really, that's something that we, the county, and the planning commission do. The annexation declaration boundary, that's the city's purview.
Correct.
And so
that's why of those 3 things we're doing, the tier change, the zone change, and the annexation, we're doing the first 2. The city will have to do the third.
Okay. And that would affect how we approach the precincting as far
Yes,
as annexation.
absolutely. There are properties that now are in the county that will be in the city and vice versa.
Thank you.
Portions of properties. That's what makes it so hard to get a tax bill for the unincorporated area and a tax bill for the incorporated area on the same lot.
Those are two different tax areas.
And there's
so
two
they have to be
taxing areas, and it
parcels,
splits it,
yeah.
and it's not big enough to do anything on the one side or the other, and it was terrible when it was done.
It's much appreciated from my perspective, what it's worth.
It will be for the property owners, it will be for the city, it will be for everybody going forward. It's just a pain
Yeah.
to do, and we recognize that. Okay?
All right. Chair will declare the public hearing open on agenda item number 3. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing.
We've had good discussions with Canaryville Town. We were set up to meet with them, but they canceled their meeting because everybody went hunting. Imagine that in Canaryville. But we will reschedule. We are rescheduled for next Thursday, and we'll be attending their town board meeting and going over all of this again with them, and just making sure that they're comfortable with the understanding of what we're doing, what will impact them, and what won't, and what they can do, and what we can help with. So. That's really all I have. There's no action. Are there any further discussion or questions from the commission?
No?
Thanks for all the hard work.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 4 today is public comments. 3-minute time limit per speaker for public comment. You trying to jump the gun, Rich?
He's ready to go.
Public comments. 3-minute per speaker. Should not repeat others' comments. Only items that are not on the agenda. No items related to the commission's role as an appeal board. Comments should be directed to the commission with no attacks on other people's character. So I'll open for public comment.
Can I discuss item number 10?
No. When we get to item number 10, you may.
Huh?
Well, so item number 10 today, let me look. Item number 10 today is not up for public discussion. Item number 10 today is just simply a declaration. Moving forward, there will be other public hearings and public comment. You bet. Sam, I didn't know if you were headed to the podium to say something. All right. No. We'll move on from public comment. We've already taken care of agenda item number 5. Agenda item number 6 is a recap of the 2024 Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games and a preview of upcoming projects for 2025. We'll welcome John Oglesby to the stand. Yeah, thanks for coming, John.
Well, good morning, Commissioner. John Oglesby with Southern Utah University and the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games. It's great to be here today and just wanted to come up and personally say thank you to the commission, to the county, share some of the success that we've had, and then talk about some of the exciting additions that we have coming up in the fourth quarter of actually 2024 and then into 2025. I want to really quick just apologize. We had our annual report that I was hoping to have done today, but there's still just a couple figures that we're trying to work out. So I will send that as soon as that is done, and just apologize for not having that done in time for today. But the rest of our figures today should be good discussion. First off, my comments today, again, are just from a place of gratitude and appreciation for the support that we get from the county. I can't speak enough about the quality of work that Maria Twitchell and her team do with Visit Cedar City Bryan Head. Commissioner Blake, Commissioner Cousins, I want both of you to know that we're actively in discussion with Maria and her team on virtually every decision we're making in terms of our calendar, working with local hospitality partners to try to benefit them to the maximum potential in terms of when we schedule events, what types of events we're bringing in, and I'm excited to share a few of those coming up here in just a couple minutes. But first off, just to give you a report, our 2024 games concluded a few weeks ago, and I'll talk a little bit about the growth of our program calendar as part of that. but we had almost 10,000 unique participants. So for a long time, we've just tracked total participants. We've started getting more this year into continuing to track that, but also tracking unique participants as well, because we have some participants that do multiple sports, which we love and appreciate, but it's good to know the sheer number of people that we're welcoming in. So we had almost 10,000 unique participants, over 12,000 total participants. That saw 13% growth year over year from fiscal year 2023 to 2024. And what was so exciting was we saw a lot of growth coming in some of our team events, particularly our youth sports and high school team events. We had a 24% growth just in high school basketball alone. That led to an almost 14% growth in weekend occupancy of hotels that weekend, which was really exciting to see. And so again, I think that kind of sets the tone of where we're going and the excitement that we have about our programming and some of the things we're doing. I want to share a little bit of what's coming up and some of the metrics that we're trying to really hone in on, working with Maria and her team, as well as all of our municipalities throughout the county. Number one, Maria and the hospitality partners in the county have really challenged us to add events in our off season that we're either owning ourselves or that we're operating on behalf of partners. I am happy to say that from July of 2024 to June of 2025, there will only be 2 months that we will not have an event going on in Iron County that we either own or are operating on behalf of partners, and that is October and then in January. So an event coming up the next couple months that we're super excited for, our expanded relationship with the High School Activities Association, which now is seeing us host state football as well as state basketball in February. We could potentially have a January event if the SUU facility scheduling works out for us to be able to host state cheerleading for the UHSAA. But an event that we are tremendously excited about is a high school drill event that we're going to be hosting in the middle of December at SUU. We're going to have 28 drill teams from around the state, including a lot of our local teams. So it's kind of nice when we're able to add events that not only bring tourism from outside the county to Iron County, but similarly save folks who live in Iron County dollars because they don't need to travel out of town. It's definitely a nice addition there, but we're expecting upwards of 20 teams that will require overnight lodging, plus parents, plus supporters. So we think in early December that's going to be a nice boost for our hospitality partners throughout the county. Again, we'll have a short off month in January just in preparation, and then starting in February with UHSAA state basketball all the way through till September. We'll have events every single month in the county that we're overseeing and looking at. Some big additions next year that I wanted to talk about really briefly. We are getting into the football space, so we're planning on adding 7-on-7 football as well as girls high school flag football, which has a large concentration of participants down in the Las Vegas Valley. We feel that Southern Nevada is a huge growth market for us and very valuable in terms of looking at economic development. Youth flag football as well. And one thing that I wanted to discuss really quickly as well, we are really working, and again, this comes from working with commissioners, working with Maria, as well as our other hospitality partners and municipalities on driving growth in midweek events during the summer games. While we appreciate the weekend visitors, when we're already at 90 to 95% occupancy in weekends, adding additional occupancy in events doesn't have as much value. It's a diminished return compared to adding to a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday when we're anywhere from 50 to 70% occupancy. The difference is much more sizable at that time. And so all the events that I talked about are going to be held Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, early week events. We're also adding a youth basketball event to a weekend later in June when we previously didn't have any programming at all. So we're hoping then to close off the June programming with a strong performance that last week of June. We were really happy this year working with Maria and her team to see almost a 10% increase in midweek ADR over 2023, which was a definite positive for a lot of the hospitality partners in the state. The last thing I want to touch on really quickly is just, again, an appreciation for all of the municipalities in the county besides just the commission and the county office. Relationships with Cedar City, City Council, Mayor, City Manager Bittman. I feel like we're in a really great place. We're having an expanded relationship with Parowan City, which I don't think is a secret. We'll be announcing in a few months or so, just discussing additional events that we're holding in Parowan, which is exciting to be spreading that economic impact around the county. Have a good relationship with City Manager Dotson as well in Enoch, and whenever we get to a point where we're ready to begin doing more events and activities in Enoch City, particularly with some winter sports opportunities potentially in the next couple of years, we're excited to get into those areas as well. Bottom line, we're very grateful to the county, grateful to all the municipalities, grateful to the citizens of our great county for the continued support and trust that they have in SUU and the summer games, and we're excited to continue to be great stewards of that to add to economic development efforts here in the county.
Thank you.
Great report. Thank you very much.
And I'd just like to say, as part of that team, with our tourism, with our hotel tax and restaurant tax boards, and working closely with Maria's office, we have an unprecedented relationship with Utah Summer Games because of your leadership.
Thank you.
And I mean that sincerely. We had, Utah Summer Games has been a staple of our community since 1980, and it's something that we can't afford to lose. It's something that our community really identifies, and to see the rejuvenation over the last year and a half, 2 years under your leadership has been awesome. It's been such a pleasure to work with you and your staff and to watch the planned growth. It's just been fantastic. It's been a real honor to work with you guys. So I truly mean it. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Blake, a great deal. And we, I to be honest, in my comments, didn't even mention our partnership with Special Olympics Utah, which is going to yield a great deal of fruit over the next couple of years as well. And so anyways, we're excited for the future, and we appreciate the support that we get from the commission and all the municipalities in the county.
Thank you. You guys truly, it's easy to support you. We can see the return on investment. It is very obvious. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you all so much. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I know Richard's excited.
I've seen him spring to.
But I wonder if we could maybe go out of order just to respect Mr. Corey's time. We've got maybe could we do number 8 first?
If it makes you happy, John.
Hey,
absolutely.
I'm happy, but that makes me super happy.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. If you can just hold on to your seat for one more item, Rich.
Sorry, Rich.
It's coming. We'll skip over to agenda item number 8, discussion and possible approval of a proposal for special inspection and materials testing proposal for the Iron County Jail facility.
Did I leave you that contract?
I don't think so. I didn't see it.
Okay. It's over here.
Oh, I was looking at it. Sorry.
It's like I saw it float around somewhere earlier, but it didn't ever land here.
So Terry's not here, but I did want to just speak to the RFP that Iron County put out for special inspection services above and beyond what our zoning department is equipped to do. We had GEM Engineering was selected, and we're grateful. They actually are located quite close to the project. Terry was excited and comfortable. Ed Defner had worked with Joel Myers before. A lot of comfort level from the folks that are going to be interacting with them. I didn't have any concerns about them. They responded very thoroughly to the RFP, which was a very demanding RFP. We had a whole chart of fees that we wanted listed, and they listed their expertise. Robert it was a little bit late for the commission packet, but I've got the hard copy here, has provided an engineering services agreement that were the commission to approve GEM Engineering that you could enter into today. Robert, did you want to say anything?
Only if you have questions. I mean, just questions or concerns, right?
I really don't have any questions or concerns. I reviewed it.
Neither. I looked through it, and the rates look fair. And
yeah, looks good. We look forward to working with you moving forward on this project. Yeah, thank you. I would
So
make a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the proposal for special inspection and materials testing proposal for the Iron County Jail facility from Gem Engineering.
I'll second. It's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is approved.
Hand you that, Commissioner. Thank you for coming out. We appreciate all your words, and maybe next time if you could cut it a little bit shorter. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry, Richard.
Come on, Rich. We're going to number 7.
I just saw the picture. I'm like Pavlov's dog. Bell rings, I get up.
Discussion and possible approval of a proposed amendment to the subdivision construction and design standards. Sheet number 2, flood channel setback standards for Parowan Creek.
Let's see. We can move these things forward. Yeah, I just want to make sure. So this information comes from a lot of effort that's been made in the past by NRCS funding events and possibilities for any type of flooding that comes out of the channels. We have these projects going on both in Cedar City and here in Parowan and in Summit. But this one is particular to Parowan. So I don't know if we can zoom in there or not, but one of the questions that came up at the zoning commission meeting was a question about the amount of water that comes out of the canyon, and have we seen an event like that before? And so I used as example 2021 coming out of Coal Creek and into the Stevensville ditch. So one of the things that happens is people talk about 100-year floods all the time. They really aren't that. They're a 1% chance of happening. 1 in 100. 1 in 100%. 1 in 100 is that going to happen this year? And so what they do is they look at the whole water basin that supplies water, and they do some calculations based upon, for example, in up the canyon above Cedar City, it's 88 square miles of storm basin. So everything that falls in that 88 miles ends up down in Cedar City. Just the nature of things, if it's not absorbed or evaporated off. And so the reason I wanted to bring that up was they asked about 2021, as that was a memorable event. Everybody remembers. And so in Coal Creek, the 100-year event, or the 1% chance in any given year, is 5,200 CSF. 2021 was 2,200 CSF. It was less than half of the 100-year event. And so it's a big amount of water, which in truth we haven't ever seen, but it's a possibility. And so this information was created off that possibility of what would come down out of Bryan Head down the canyon and end up into Parowan Creek. And so as we look at this, they gave us some proposals, and I based the channel widths on the proposals, which are down here, along here, section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, not all of these sections are actually in county jurisdiction. They actually end right about here, 1 through 4.
There's another slide there, Rich, if you go. Let me have the keyboard, and I'll show you one that has it on there.
Yes. All right. Thank you. So we see about where the county responsibilities or where our jurisdiction is somewhere in there, the 1, 2, 3, and 4 section. So our options are to do something, do nothing, or do part of something. And I want to go back to that slide you had of a do-nothing situation. Right there. So the peak discharge that's possible is 4,800 CSF. And that's what Parowan City looks like if we do nothing. All of Parowan, or most of Parowan City, has some sort of flooding in that kind of an event. So the project we're working on now, which is the Parowan Creek study, is where these numbers come from. And the idea being is that the channel needs to be enlarged, and with that enlargement,
And that 4810, I'm sorry, to clarify, was a 100-year flood?
that's the
That was the
100 year,
number for the-
or the 1%
100,
chance. And let me go to that, John, just for a brief second. I didn't bring that document with me, but I'll tell you what that means. It means that it can happen. There's 1 in 100 chance of it happening in any given year.
Right.
But the math works out statistically that it will happen in 29 years, not in 100, because it compounds. If it didn't happen last year and it didn't happen the year before, its chance of happening increases. It gets
It's
greater.
not like rolling a dice. It's not that type of probability.
No.
Is that what you're saying?
That's right. And so these type of events will happen. And if they don't happen, the likelihood just keeps building that when they will happen. And so they need to be planned for and prepared for. And so what we've had in the past was, without this study, without information, this is the channel that we're talking about. It's an old irrigation ditch that was improved, and we have building up against it right now on both. This was a picture. Those two flash back and forth. One is looking east, then you turn around, the other's looking west. And can you imagine what a full-fledged storm would look like? And so in order to handle this and protect property, and particularly Parowan, we need a wider channel. And so this is where we're at, where zoning comes into play. And what we see here is from those sections 1 through 4, from the center of the channel, what would be the needed width of that channel. And the information we've got is that the X's, which is the channel top to top width, is around 74, 75 feet. Anywhere in there, because you see at one place it's over 100 feet, and that's down by the interstate. So the top of the channel needs to be 100 feet wide to handle the water. You can't make this channel deeper because it's so flat out there. You can't get to, you just have to handle the flow. So you either handle the flow capacity by depth or width. But being flat, it all has to be width. And so that's what's being proposed here. And so what we're saying is this is not an immediate effect on anyone. This is just planning, which says that without an ordinance, people can build a stone wall right up next to that channel. With an ordinance in place, we work with the developer who comes in and chooses to develop, or the property owner who chooses to develop, and we begin a discussion on what the setbacks need to be. And what we've decided is to get the channel width plus additional area for equipment operation. And in this case, for example, let's look at section 2. We're saying we get about 29 feet beside the channel, in addition to the channel width, we get 29 feet of operational area. It doesn't mean that you can't do something in there. In fact, in the previous conversation where you asked about trails and things on that development and that rezoning, that's what is proposed along the Stevensville ditch, is that same setback is honored. 100 feet for a livable structure, 75 feet for walls and sheds and things like that. But then the space is then used for trails, stuff like that.
Fine.
But we can always run a piece of equipment on a trail,
Right.
without having to damage someone's built-up property like a fence or a block wall or something. And so that's where those numbers came from. They just said, here's the ditch width. How much room do we need on the side? How far should we safely consider for a habitable structure? And in doing so, I just want to come back to the emphasis that if we can build the channel properly, we don't put all of Parowan in risk of a flood event, because the stormwater would be handled in the channel. It wouldn't overtop the banks. And it doesn't even happen until the developer comes in, but we can't do anything if we don't have an ordinance. We can't tell people to follow a rule just because we think it's the right idea. We have to have a rule. So this is our proposal. Reed, do you have anything to add?
Just to keep you moving, I'm just gonna.
I was moving. I was done.
This is the sheet that would add to the design and construction standards for any subdivision or development, and it has all of this is the regulation. So it's sheet number 2. Sheet number 1 is for the Cedar City channel. So sheet number 2 would be for the Parowan channel in this particular flood area. So Planning Commission recommended that we approve this and gives us, like Rich said, an opportunity to have something in place as new development comes to establish what those setbacks are.
Rich, I think a good idea would be to maybe get on the agenda for the next home builders meeting and talk to them about this. A lot of them probably know about it, but for those that don't, as they're planning subdivisions and doing their planning.
I think that's a great idea, Commissioner, because I think as I've gone through the documents that were created years ago about the Stevensville ditch, they kind of end at the airport. All the planning ends on the Stevensville ditch and the airport, but there have been even the development we were discussing with the Jones development there of north of 3,000, and I have been in communication both with their engineer and with them about how to keep that development protected from storms. We hope to never overtop Stevensville ditch again. That was a fluke. I believe that was an unforeseen event, which we're preparing for. But if we don't ever overtop, we still have to be prepared for the monsoon season, where the rain can drop and leave a lot of water. So we want to be able to work with the developer. So a meeting with them would talk about water, because many times in this valley we see months and perhaps years with no huge rain event. But we need to plan as if they can and will happen.
All right. Is there you know what I'm trying to spit out?
Motion.
Motion.
Trying to figure out where I'm at. Sorry. We've moved things around so much. Discussion and possible approval. So I'll propose to approve the subdivision construction and design standards. Sheet number 2, flood channel setback standards, Parowan Creek, presented by Rich Wilson and Reed Erickson.
It's been, excuse me, I will second that. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Done. Agenda item number 9. Resolution 2024-9, appointing a representative and an alternate representative for the annual Utah Counties Indemnity Pool, USIP annual meeting to be held November 22nd, 2024.
So this, I was going to pull it up, but I'll just speak. So this has to do with the fact that there is voting. There's actually a Class 3 representative up this year on the USIP board, and I was nominated this time, but I have historically done it. I'm happy to continue to do it. What we've typically done is had myself be the representative and Jennifer Bradbury be the alternate, and so if that's what you'd like, we can move forward with that. And I was going to pull it up, but
Let it be said, let it be done, right?
Yeah, let's not fix it if it ain't broke.
That's my motion.
Okay. I'm happy to continue in that. So that's
I'm going to second that motion.
okay. Well, so it has to be in the form of a resolution. So
Come on, John. No.
There's this, so let it be written. Let it be.
That's right.
resolved. Let it be resolved.
All right. Is there a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I will move to appoint John Whitaker as the main representative and Jennifer Bradbury as a backup for the representative for the annual Utah Counties Indemnity Pool USIP annual meeting to be held on November 22nd, 2024.
I will second that. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wouldn't you want to just approve the resolution 2024?
Yeah. Sorry. So that's what that resolution says.
So
Yeah, I was hoping to pull that up. So just.
So I'll amend my motions just to approve the resolution 2024-9, which is what I just said.
I will second it. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Reed.
It is proved again. Okay, agenda item number 10. Declaration of intent to increase property taxes on the Iron County General Fund levy, dollar amount of increase, expressed purpose for increase, and approximate percentage of the increase. So I have a prepared statement that covers all of our legal responsibilities. Again, this isn't an action item today, nor are we accepting public comment, because there will be plenty of time for that down the road. So, number one, Iron County is intending to increase the general fund property tax rate. Number two, the dollar amount of the increase per year will be $1.2 million. 3, the purpose of the proposed increase is due to the growing community and the need to enhance and expand essential services that support the safety, well-being, and quality of life for all residents. First, with our population steadily increasing, there is a greater demand for public services, including law enforcement and legal services. Second, inflation has significantly impacted operational costs across the board, from personnel to equipment and insurance. The last time Iron County did a tax increase in the general fund was in 2003. In order to maintain and improve the quality of services we provide, it is necessary to adjust this funding source. The approximate percentage of increase on the Iron County general fund tax rate is estimated to be 19.5%. This is only on the county portion of the property taxes. In relation to property taxes as a whole, this is about a 2% increase. On the average home in Iron County, this is a $35.60 increase per year. So, there will be more information forthcoming, public hearings and everything else that goes along with that moving forward. So, moving into the next agenda item, we'll convene as the Board of Equalization, step outside of our role as the Iron County Commission. Item number 11 is requesting review and approval of the Board of Equalization hearing officer recommendations for valuations appealed filed for the 2024 tax year.
Let me go see if Carrie's here. Run an errand and
Okay. We will turn the time over to Carrie Christiansen.
I apologize. I just got back to the office. I'm going to give you hard copies of all.
Thank you.
The things you should have already received. She's not here today. And you. Good morning. Okay, the first report that I handed you on top is the master log of all protests. That's just for your review. I included that in the digital that I uploaded and I gave to John. You should have that access to review and look over those. The second report, which is the Board of Equalization, it's on an Excel spreadsheet. That's my entry log that I balance to. Again, it shows the types of each of the applications that were received, the appeal applications, the decisions that were rendered for each of the appeals. If you turn to the very last page, I apologize, page 20, it shows that we received 818 appeals this year for the board, which is up from last year. Of the 818, there were 777 adjustments for a total of $35,771,623 in value adjustments. The taxable adjustments for this year for those appeals were $33,952,310 of taxable value adjustments. There is a key on that page that shows you the types of the appeals and how they were resolved as well. And then the very last report that I've included is a commission report that shows by area the taxable and market adjustments by each of the taxing areas. And on the second page of that report shows a total number of appeals along with prior year's appeals filed for historical purposes. And then it also reflects the amount of general fund revenue and municipal fund or municipal services revenue that these appeals will impact. So for county general fund purposes, the impact to the general fund for taxing is $36,532.69. And municipal services, $5,875.66 for a total adjustment of $42,408.34 in taxable tax revenue from these appeals. You have any questions for me?
It's a lot of work. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's a ridiculous amount of work. Thank you.
It is a lot of work.
Your efforts have not gone unnoticed. We really appreciate what you've done. Thank you.
So we need a approval of this?
Yes.
I will move to approve the Board of Equalization information the hearing officer has given us for evaluation appeals filed for the 2024 tax year.
I will second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, for
This last page right here, please. For both of you.
Just anywhere.
Just anywhere. That's fine. And then this page.
thank you. We will reconvene as the Iron County Commission. And then again step out of that role of the Iron County Commission to convene as the Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency. For agenda item number 12, which is the discussion of proposed solar and battery projects and possible approval of reimbursement agreements. Welcome, Adam Long.
Thanks for having me. Again, I'm Adam Long. I'm the attorney for the agency. What we have today is, I think, pretty straightforward. We have a total of 5 projects that are looking to move forward, and 4 of them are, in simple terms, adding battery storage to existing solar projects. So these are solar projects that have been built, are operating, paying taxes. The proposal here is to add batteries to these projects. And then we have one that would be a totally new ground-up project. So those first 4 projects are owned by Clearway Energy. It's a big renewable developer. 3 of those projects would be, fingers crossed, very, very simple. This would be adding batteries within the existing project area boundaries. From a tax entity perspective, that looks very much like adding more solar panels. It adds more taxable value. There's one of those 4 that would likely require a project area boundary amendment. And then the 5th project, called Antelope Springs, is out in the same area as these projects, 10 miles or so north of Newcastle. That would be a ground up, totally new project with solar and potentially battery storage. And that's by a company called Bright Night Energy. Again, a big renewable energy developer. So, as is typical with these, we ask the developers to agree to cover the cost of the setup and expenses for creating these projects, doing these agreements. The goal here is that the agency's not stuck with, basically sunk cost if this project never pans out. If they can't get an off-taker for whatever reason, it's not viable. So what we're looking for here is really a go-ahead and approval of these reimbursement agreements. This is really step 0. These agreements have the developers make a deposit with the agency. The agency then pays the expenses, mostly my fees, out of that deposit. The intention is that it covers all the expenses involved. If it doesn't, the agency would go back to the developer and say, hey, we need to refresh this. I'm happy to answer questions. We also have David Johnson, who's Cedar City, Iron County Economic Development Director, and Nathan Runyon in the back, looking very loyally, is legal counsel for Clearway. So Nathan in particular is happy to answer questions. Like I said, this is step 0, and I'm happy to either give him some time now or disseminate information as we move ahead.
So a couple of clarifying questions. One, what you're talking about is just these agreements to move forward. Now, typically we have agreements on as unique agenda items.
I'm totally fine with just approval of the agreements. They're all in your packet. They've all been signed by the developers.
Okay.
I don't have an issue with doing it this way.
Sam, do you have a concern if we, or maybe even put them on the next agenda to ratify? Because we are entering into an agreement, but we really haven't agendized it, other than to talk about that we're doing that. And really, it like Adam said, it's a situation where they do a deposit, usually I believe about $10,000.
It varies depending on the amount of work we expect.
So it's not a fixed amount, but a certain amount into the agency, and then Adam is paid through the agency. And any expenses that Adam, he's paid through the agency, but on particular projects, those funds are not funds that we collected through taxes. Those were funds put forward by the developers. But what we have is agreements that I would feel better if we had agendized them, but I also would be okay if they were to be maybe talked about today and ratified in the next meeting. What are your feelings on that, Sam?
I think that the discussion today achieves the purpose that you're looking for,
okay, and
that they could sign off on these today, unless I'm missing something else. But
the only thing is they weren't specifically listed on the agenda. But if you feel like that that the agenda is sufficient, I'm comfortable with that. I just wanted to make sure, because it basically says possible approval of reimbursement agreements, and that is probably, like you say, sufficiently broad enough to.
Again, I'm satisfied with that as far as agenda language.
Okay.
That's what I'd be.
Frankly, the board could give us direction to just get these agreements executed and go ahead with projects. This is, like I said, step 0 and not
no reason to pause for
agency money.
No, as far from my perspective, that would achieve our purposes today.
And then my next question is, for the existing 4 of the 5 projects that are not going to be putting new solar panels in the ground, will the incremental growth be based on the base value when the project was begun, or does that reset?
So for 3 of them, where the battery storage containers, for lack of a better word, are within existing project area boundaries, that that taxable value would get captured by the existing interlocal agreements. The preliminary request from Clearway is just to have, to collect the incremental value from those battery systems on the same terms as the existing interlocal agreement. So those wouldn't even be changes.
The incremental growth would be greater, basically.
Yeah.
From the original base value, you have the base value to the operating power plant, and then you would have from there to the value. Am I stating that correctly?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
This would be, if we look at the project area as a whole, so solar and battery, the incremental value is all essentially one bucket. It looks the same from a tax perspective.
Okay, and only one of the areas would have to be modified, and then the other one would be new.
Correct. So of the battery only proposals, so those are the 4 Clearway projects. 3 fit within the existing project area boundaries. So likely that would just be a new participation agreement with the entity that owns and operates the batteries. And then that 4th one, which is Iron Springs, it's adjacent to but just outside. So that would be either a project area boundary amendment or maybe creating a small new project area. It's essentially 6 as far as process goes.
Well, and I think the other half of that is whether you modify an existing tax area or create a new one.
And we will, whatever is easiest for the county is fine from the agency perspective as far as the tax administration.
Commissioner Blake, I believe Nicole has something to say.
I was just going to ask the same thing. It's not going to change the percentage as far as the reimbursement.
Correct. At least that's the preliminary proposal. At least hasn't been signed on the dotted line yet, but that's what they're asking for.
And so, another clarification. Then we're not talking about resetting the clock on. Okay.
Correct. So
because Granite Mountain West has been in operation for a while.
Yeah. So all 4 of these have 7 or 8 years left. So this would capture probably 7 years, 2026 through 2032, depending on how quickly you get the batteries installed out there. But no, not looking at modifying any of the terms. Like I said, from a tax perspective, it looks just like if they had planted a whole bunch more solar panels out there. But the batteries are great from a tax perspective because they're very value dense. It covers a handful of acres, and 3 of those projects are looking at capital investment of $145 million-ish.
Yeah. Are they contemplating depreciation?
They depreciate on the same schedule as the solar panels do for tax purposes.
Okay. I think Nicole had.
So when they report
I'm sorry, could you come up to the microphone?
I was waiting for it.
So when Clearway reports on their personal property, they will just include that additional value for the battery?
It will be a separate entity reporting it, so it'll be a separate LLC that owns the batteries themselves.
But it would still be taxed under the same.
Nate is nodding affirmatively.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
So you're talking about separate personal property, but within the same taxing area.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Nicole?
Any other questions? Or
Nicole, I mean, heartburn with any of that. I just so often the cart gets put before the horse on these, and
I don't know. As long as they're going to just include that value, tax under the same parcel, same reimbursement percentage, just so nothing changes.
and so from a taxation process perspective, then 3 of the projects will not have even a boundary change.
Correct.
1 will potentially have a boundary change or a small additional project area, tax area.
Correct.
Or maybe, yeah. And then the 5th one would be a whole new project.
Yes.
Okay.
And we will work with Nicole. So things are I don't want to say not painful, but as close to painless as possible.
Well, and I think one of the things that we could do better as a county is to capture the administrative costs maybe more appropriately, or is to say at all. But that might be something that it might be good for us to, the three of us, to visit about.
Yep. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But for today's purposes, Sam feels good about the agenda language. It's just these reimbursement agreements, which involve the developer putting money toward the agency. That way we can reimburse you for the work on the project.
Correct.
Great. Do we have a motion?
Yep. I will move to approve of the proposed solar and battery projects and the possible approval of reimbursement agreements with Adam Long has presented to us today.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Done. We'll reconvene as the Iron County Commission and move into personnel items. Jen, come on down.
Hello. All right, I'll go first A through D before spending a little bit more time on E if that's appropriate. So in the attorney's office, Dallin Brooks has accepted a promotion transferring him from a seasonal law clerk to a full-time Deputy 2 attorney beginning September 29th. In the Sheriff's Office Patrol, Brandon Rowley has completed all requirements to be promoted from a full-time Deputy 1 to a full-time Deputy 2 position beginning October 13th, 2024. In the USU Extension Office, Larice Ellsworth was selected from the most recent recruiting and interview process to backfill the vacant full-time USU Extension Office Administrative Assistant position effective 10/14/2024. And then in the landfill, Hunter White was selected from the most recent competitive recruiting and selection process to return to Iron County, as he originally was a seasonal weed technician, to a full-time landfill technician 1, backfill of a vacant position effective 10/14/2024.
So that's A through D?
Correct.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the personnel section 13, A through D as outlined.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. A through D are approved.
I'll take it. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the 2025 employee insurance proposal. I just kind of made a breakdown of just the topics that I possibly will discuss, just kind of going back to state that this is unfortunately one of those years that that's given us a little bit of heartburn, and I'll kind of explain the why behind it because I think that's important. But today I'll just be providing a detailed update on the increased insurance premiums for the 2025 years and then kind of discuss the impact a little bit. I'll talk about the reasons behind the premium increase, the impact of inflation and the high-cost illness claims, and what the conclusion was that was reached by the insurance committee, which I'm grateful that 2 members are here today, about with the possibility of retaining our current plan. So unfortunately, the total cost increase for the 2025 year is $498,939, and that's an additional cost. Part of that is because of inflationary pressures to the insurance market, as well as high cost prescriptions and claims from some ill members in our county. The nationwide, inflation continues to raise costs, including healthcare and insurance premiums. There's also been a rise in high cost claims within our county due to critical illnesses, as well as high cost insurance claims that further increased the cost. And these represent a significant impact on our local insurance pool. The insurance committee meeting, we've met twice to thoroughly review the increased insurance costs for 2025. And after careful consideration and discussion, the committee unanimously agreed to maintain the current insurance plan. It's the most important thing for the well-being of our employees and their families. It provides critical coverage, and any reductions could negatively affect both the employees' health and financial stability. The comprehensive coverage current plan is a broad coverage that's essential for our employees' health needs. Changing the plan would disrupt the continuity of care and potentially create a confusion or dissatisfaction with employees. Unfortunately, with this insurance plan, and I'll kind of give a little bit of history, our our brokers did try to reach out to several insurance companies to see if there was any possibility that there could be a decrease in plan. We had 2 people that kind of looked at our plan and gave us an astronomical number, so we don't even count them. But out of the others that were approached, they declined to even give us a quote at that point, because unfortunately our plan has, like I said, a couple of high cost claims on there that they just don't want to even touch. So we're kind of in this anomaly of a year. I'm hoping it's only a 1-year thing. I don't know what the future holds, but it's kind of one of those years that we really kind of stress about, for sure. So by maintaining our coverage, we protect against potential long-term healthcare costs and employee absenteeism. So to keep the current plan, we believe is the best option going forward, given the market conditions as well as the importance of comprehensive coverage for our workforce. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those, and I can kind of give you a breakdown on what we've had in the past, but I think you're well aware that it's been pretty good up until now. Unfortunately. So, any questions?
I feel like we've been really fortunate in years past, knowing that at some point it was going to catch up.
Unfortunately.
So I appreciate all your work, even all your diligence. I know this is a months-long process. I appreciate everything that you've put into
and I'm
your
appreciative
office.
Also to the committee for I mean, we usually don't meet this often, but with this being kind of an interesting year, I wanted their input. I wanted to kind of see what the rest of the county really valued, as well as what their expectations really were regarding how much this would actually cost us. But
okay. Ready for motion?
Yeah, ready for motion on E.
So I'll move on under personnel, item E, under insurance renewal. I'll move to approve the proposal that has been outlined for our insurance coverage, employee benefits for the 2025 plan year.
I'll second that. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
thank you so much.
Thanks, Jennifer.
I'm not aware of any county board issues. Do we have any closed session issues for today?
There is potentially one, and I'm going to actually maybe explain a bit here. So I have listed, I engaged an appraiser to value the old CJC building that we've just vacated. And we listed the property, which was a converted home, and so there was a bit of discussion with the appraiser as far as what the best and highest use of that would be, and so instead of as a commercial property, it was actually listed as a home with some work that would have to be done to kind of restore it to, regular home living, and so they came back with a value. I listed the property, and we've got a bona fide offer, which was exactly the appraised value, which was exactly the listing value. I was not able to find anything in commission action that directed me to sell this. I believe someone just asked me to do this, and I don't recall exactly how that conversation went. But what I suggest is that, with your permission, I will put it back on the agenda for next time. We can put that we might enter into a closed session if there was some kind of negotiation that the commissioners wanted to do. But basically, we asked for an appraisal. We listed at the appraised price, and we got an appraised priced offer. And so, I think that's pretty straightforward, unless we wanted to try and haggle up on price. And so I don't think there's any action that really could be taken today, especially where I couldn't find, any specific action as a commission agendized item directing me to do that. And so I think the best thing to do would be to bring that back in the next meeting. I don't know, Sam, do you have any reaction to that? Thumbs up. So no, I would say then I would recommend no closed session today, and we'll move forward like I explained.
Okay. Well, with that being said, we'll declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for... That seemed like a lot that we got through really pretty quickly. So there was a lot of meat on the bone today. So thank you for everybody's attendance.